Welcome back, guys. In this podcast, I'm going to talk about truth, why people get lost in an ocean of ideologies, ideals, philosophies, models, frameworks. You know, I've contemplated on this the last couple of days, how many people I actually know who have devoted their life to truth. When I say truth, I don't mean when you're in a conversation and you need to get away from the conversation, so you just say you're busy or something. That's not the truth. That's relative truth. I'm talking about absolute truth here. That which cannot be taken away, that which is always apparent, and there is no way that it couldn't be. Truth is a destructive process. It's quite nihilistic. All belief systems, all opinions, all life philosophies that you've held until this point, truth tends to burn all these away, and you have to be open to that idea before you walk that path. It isn't something to be took lightly. When I consider it, I cannot actually name 5 people, whether they're so-called famous or not, who I could say have dedicated their life to this. Now, that may be because they do not wish to be known, and you know that they live a so-called normal life, just doing their day-to-day life, work and whatever, and that's very, very possible. So, and I would not know about these people. But from the people who talk about truth, and a lot of them do in the religious and spiritual communities, they're absolutely full of it. They are merely repeating ideas. They are talking mental structures, and it's one big self-deception. A very subtle one, because people think they're talking about truth when in reality all they're talking about is their own philosophy, their own belief system that they hold to be true. Although it may be closer to truth, it is in essence the same as the person who believes blowing up an aeroplane is God's will. Now, we can get lost in that. In absolute terms, anything that is God's will. So, if we go to that level, then yes, I suppose that is absolute truth. But the truth that I'm speaking here, the mind in general, clouds this reality. It clouds what is based on what it wants to be, what it thinks it should be. It distorts reality into a framework that the mind is happy and comfortable with. So this is why we get drawn to pleasure. It's why we get hooked on things that invoke dopamine, so that we can get manipulated into comfort, into that quick excitement, into that pleasure, and avoid reality as reality is. That's what's going on when we get hooked to these things. And that's no different to, you know, newspapers and that from years gone by. Social media is that new distraction. But self-deception is apparent everywhere. People are avoiding their own pain, their own unconscious mind, as much as they possibly can. They'd rather live in illusion, in falsity, in fakeness, because the truth is too painful. Reality as it is too painful for people to comprehend. It takes courage. And people have had the courage wiped out of them. You've seen this in the last few years with what's been going on with COVID. And it's been going on forever, to be honest, as long as humanity has existed. But reality is painful because it burns through all belief systems. This is what growing up is. If you want to escape childhood, which is the vast majority, there's a lot of people say people are asleep, which is true in my experience, but also they're children. They have no mental maturity, no spiritual maturity. What I'm talking here, reality, seeing life for what life is, allowing life to be your teacher, that is adulthood. If you are triggered by events in the world, if you're bothered about the political spectrum and how it affects your life and all this, you're acting with an infantile psychology. You're putting the blame, you're a victim to circumstances, and you will be trapped in that forever until you take full ownership of your own essence, your own being, and the understanding of the mechanism that we call humanity, human beings, and the mind. The mind is a wonderful slave, but it's a terrible, terrible master, and most people are at the mercy of their mind. Why wouldn't they be? When the people that are teaching them, when society, when science, when spirituality is reaffirming this nonsense to them. Everything you've picked up could be an illusion, including what I'm saying now. Do not believe a word anybody says, including me. Find out for yourself what the truth is. But people do not want that. People do not want to go and find what the truth is. They do not want to face reality for what it is. Because they get by. Just. And this reflects out in many ways, in various different life contexts. So wealth, health, relationships, you're just getting by. You know what I mean. And this is where society is at. People may suggest, it's never been better. Possibly in certain circumstances. But psychologically, definitely not. In terms of being a human being, an organic, natural human, no way. In terms of being out of poverty, potentially. But in terms of being natural, certainly not. So do you see how this plays out? The pain that you have to go through is the price you have to pay to live a natural life, to be completely authentic. Authenticity does not come from the mind. Authenticity comes from spontaneity. You do not have to think about it. It does not require effort. If you look back on your life now, the most magical times, the times where time is removed, it becomes timeless, it's eternal. The mind is not at play. I'm not saying negate the mind here. I'm not saying get rid of the mind as a lot of these spiritual type people do. Far from it. But notice that the mind is not there when you're in a state of flow, when you're being authentic to yourself The mind cannot be there by definition. Because that which is categorizing, trying to put things into boxes, is not you. You are expansive beyond the mind. The mind is within that expansiveness. Hence St. Francis of Assisi. What you are looking for is what is looking. Okay, so this is just me talking about truth. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you may have got something from it. This is not a process. This is not something that can fix anybody. I hope these words resonate. Good night.